Princess Zarathil stood on the balcony of the embassy building, watching the twin suns set over the alien city below. The purple sky looked beautiful, but she felt restless. She had been on this diplomatic mission for 3 months, and she missed home. The princess was 7 feet tall, with dark blue skin that looked almost like armor. Her people, the Veltarans, were one of the strongest species in the galaxy. The communication device on her wrist buzzed. She looked down and saw it was an urgent message from the capital. Her heart started beating faster. Urgent messages were never good news. Princess Zarathil came the voice of General Corex, her father's most trusted advisor. His voice sounded strange, like he had been crying. "You must return home immediately. There has been a terrible attack." "What kind of attack?" she asked, but she already knew the answer would be bad. "He was killed during the peace talks with the Zephyrian rebels. We believe it was the work of professional assassins, the same group that has been causing trouble across the outer systems." The princess felt the world spin around her. Her father was the strongest warrior she knew. He had fought in dozens of battles and survived attacks from the most dangerous enemies in the galaxy. How could he be dead? "The council has called an emergency session," General Corex continued. "As the only heir, you must return and claim the throne. If you do not get back soon, there will be civil war. The rebel factions are already making moves to grab power." Princess Zarathil closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had trained her whole life for this moment, but she never wanted it to come so soon. "I understand. Prepare my ship. I will leave within the hour." "There is one more thing," the general said. "Our intelligence shows that the same assassins who killed your father are now hunting you. The Galactic Protection Agency is sending someone to guard you during the journey home." "Good. Send me their best warrior. I want someone who can fight beside me if we run into trouble." There was a long pause. "They are sending someone, Princess. His name is Marcus Chen. He should arrive at the embassy soon." 2 hours later, Princess Zarathil stood in the embassy's main hall, waiting to meet her new bodyguard. She expected to see a large warrior, maybe from one of the strong military species like the Krokar or the Phoenix. Instead, a small figure walked through the door. The man was clearly human. He was maybe 6 feet tall, with brown hair and quiet brown eyes. He wore a simple dark suit that looked like something a businessman might wear. He carried a small bag and looked like he belonged in an office, not on a battlefield. "Your Highness," he said with a small bow, "I am Marcus Chen. I have been assigned to protect you during your journey home." Princess Zarathil stared at him. This was a joke. This small, weak-looking human was supposed to protect her? She was bigger than him, stronger than him, and definitely more dangerous than him. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as a clever species, good with computers and machines, but they were physically weak. They lived short lives, and their bodies broke easily. "Is this some kind of mistake?" she asked. "Where is my real bodyguard?" "I am your bodyguard, Your Highness," Marcus said calmly. "I understand your concerns, but I assure you that I am qualified for this assignment." The princess looked him up and down. He did not look qualified. He looked like he would run away at the first sign of danger. Her personal servants were more intimidating than this human. "Do you have any combat experience?" she asked. "Some," Marcus replied. "Some? What does that mean? Have you ever been in a real fight?" "I have been in situations that required defensive action," Marcus said. His voice was quiet and calm, like he was talking about the weather. Princess Zarathil felt her anger rising. Her father was dead, assassins were hunting her, and the protection agency had sent her a human accountant. "This is unacceptable. I demand a real warrior, someone from the Phoenix military, or a Krogar battlemaster, not a human clerk." "I understand your feelings, Your Highness," Marcus said, "but I am the agent who has been assigned to this case. I have already reviewed the travel plans and security arrangements. We should leave soon if we want to stay ahead of any pursuit." The princess wanted to argue more, but she knew she did not have time. Every hour she delayed gave the rebels more time to organize. She would have to accept this weak human escort and rely on her own abilities to keep herself safe. "Fine," she said, "but understand this clearly. I do not expect you to actually protect me. I can take care of myself. Just try to stay out of my way and do not slow me down." "Understood, Your Highness," Marcus said with another small bow. As they walked toward the landing platform where her ship was waiting, Princess Zarathil noticed that Marcus moved differently than she expected. He walked quietly, and his eyes seemed to be watching everything around them. When other people approached, he positioned himself slightly between them and her, but he did it so smoothly that she almost did not notice. Maybe the human was not completely useless, but she still could not understand why the protection agency would send such a small, weak person to guard the most important princess in the empire. It made no sense. The transport ship was called the Stellar Crown, and it was one of the fastest vessels in the royal fleet. As they boarded, the captain saluted both of them. "Your Highness, we are ready to depart whenever you give the order. The route has been planned to avoid the most dangerous areas of space." "Good," the princess said. "How long until we reach the capital?" 4 days, Your Highness, if everything goes smoothly." Princess Zarathil nodded. 4 days was not too long. She could keep herself safe for 4 days, even with only a human accountant for backup. As the ship lifted off from the planet's surface, she looked back at the embassy building, getting smaller below them. This was the last peaceful place she would see for a long time. From now on, she would have to assume that enemies were watching her every move. She glanced over at Marcus, who was reading something on a small device. He looked completely calm, like this was just another normal day for him. The princess shook her head. She would have to be extra careful during this journey. She could not rely on anyone else to keep her alive. The first day aboard the Stellar Crown passed quietly. Princess Zarathil spent most of her time in the command center, studying the ship's defensive systems and reviewing their travel route. She wanted to understand every detail of their journey home. If assassins were really hunting her, she needed to be ready for anything. Marcus Chen, her human escort, seemed to spend his time doing boring paperwork. She saw him checking supply lists, reading crew schedules, and looking at maintenance reports. It was exactly what she expected from a human. They always seemed more interested in paperwork than actual fighting. "Mr. Chen," she said during lunch on the second day, "I want to review the security protocols with the ship's crew. We need to make sure everyone understands their duties if we are attacked." Marcus looked up from his tablet. "I have already spoken with the captain about security arrangements, Your Highness. Everything is in order." "You spoke with the captain? When?" The princess felt annoyed. She was supposed to be in charge of her own protection. "I had some help this morning while you were reviewing the navigation charts," Marcus said calmly. "I also completed background checks on all crew members. They are all clean." Princess Zarathil stared at him. "Background checks? How did you do background checks so quickly? That kind of work takes days, even with the best computers." "I had some help," Marcus replied, then went back to reading his tablet. This made the princess even more annoyed. What kind of help could a human have that worked faster than her own royal intelligence networks? She decided that Marcus was probably lying to make himself seem more useful than he actually was. "I want to interview each crew member personally," she announced. "I need to make sure they can be trusted." "That is your choice, Your Highness," Marcus said. "But it might not be necessary. I am confident in their loyalty." The princess ignored him and spent the afternoon talking to the crew. The captain, the engineer, the pilot, and the others all seemed honest and dedicated. But she noticed something strange. When she asked them about security procedures, they all mentioned that the human agent had already briefed them on emergency protocols. What kind of briefing? She asked the captain. He explained what to do if we were boarded by hostiles. The captain replied. Very detailed instructions about lockdown procedures and safe room locations. He also gave us new communication codes to use if our regular channels were compromised. Princess Zarathil was surprised. She had not authorized any of these changes. When she confronted Marcus about it, he simply said, Standard precautions, Your Highness. I hope you don't mind. She minded very much, but she did not know what to say. Technically, the briefings sounded like good ideas. She just wished he had asked her permission first. That evening, while she was eating dinner in her quarters, the lights flickered. Just for a moment, but long enough to notice. She called the bridge to ask about it. Just a small power fluctuation, Your Highness, the engineer told her. We are looking into it. 20 minutes later, Marcus knocked on her door. Your Highness, I wanted to let you know that the power issue has been resolved. It was caused by a faulty relay in the secondary system. The engineer has replaced it. How do you know that? She asked. Did you help with the repair? I looked into it, Marcus said. Everything is fine now. The princess found this answer frustrating. Marcus always seemed to know about problems before she did, and he always claimed to have looked into them. What did that even mean? The navigation computer reported a small error in their course calculations. The pilot corrected it quickly, but it meant they had been traveling slightly off route for several hours. Again, Marcus appeared shortly after the problem was discovered. I have checked the navigation logs, Your Highness. The error was caused by outdated star chart data. I have updated the charts with current information. Where did you get current star chart data? Princess Zarathil demanded. We are in the middle of empty space. There are no communication relays out here. I have access to certain databases, Marcus replied vaguely. The princess was getting tired of his mysterious answers. She was also starting to wonder if the human was actually competent, or if he was just taking credit for work that others were doing. On the third day, they were scheduled to pass through the contested zone, an area of space known for pirates and mercenary groups. Princess Zarathil called a meeting with the senior crew to discuss defensive preparations. I want all weapon systems checked and ready, she announced. Post extra guards at all entry points. Monitor all communication channels for suspicious activity. We should assume that hostile forces know our route and might try to intercept us. The captain nodded. Yes, Your Highness. We will take all necessary precautions. Marcus raised his hand slightly. Your Highness, these preparations might be premature. I do not believe we face any immediate threats in this region. Princess Zarathil turned to stare at him. Premature? We are entering the most dangerous part of our journey. How can defensive preparations be premature? I have been monitoring communication traffic and ship movements in this area, Marcus explained. I have not detected any unusual activity that would suggest an ambush. You have been monitoring communications? What equipment are you using? Marcus hesitated for a moment. I have access to certain monitoring tools, Your Highness. There he was again with his vague answers. Princess Zarathil decided she had heard enough. Mr. Chen, I appreciate your efforts, but I am in command of this mission. We will implement full defensive protocols whether you think they are necessary or not. Of course, Your Highness, Marcus said. But she noticed that he did not look worried or concerned. He looked like someone who was humoring a child. That afternoon, while the crew was busy with defensive preparations, Princess Zarathil began paying more attention to Marcus's behavior. She noticed that he never sat with his back to an open doorway. When people approached him, his hand would move slightly toward his jacket before relaxing again. When he walked through the ship, his eyes constantly scanned the corridors and rooms. These were not the behaviors of a weak accountant. These were the habits of someone who expected trouble and knew how to handle it. Mr. Chen, she said during dinner, what exactly did you do before you became a bodyguard? Various types of security work, Your Highness, Marcus replied. What kind of security work? Different assignments. Risk assessment, threat evaluation, protective services. Another vague answer. The princess was beginning to think that Marcus Chen was deliberately hiding something from her. The question was what, and why? On the fourth morning, Princess Zarathil woke up to find that they had safely passed through the contested zone during the night. No pirates, no mercenaries, no attacks of any kind. Part of her felt relieved, but another part felt foolish. Maybe Marcus had been right about the defensive preparations being unnecessary. She found him in the observation lounge, drinking coffee and reading reports on his tablet. In the daylight streaming through the viewing ports, he looked even more ordinary than usual. Just a quiet human man in a simple suit. "Good morning, Your Highness," he said when she entered. "We should reach the capital system by this evening." "Good," she replied, sitting down across from him. "I am eager to get home and deal with the people who killed my father." Marcus nodded, but did not say anything. Princess Zarathil studied his face, looking for any reaction to her mention of revenge. His expression remained calm and neutral. "Chen, can I ask you a direct question?" "Of course, Your Highness." "Do you think I am capable of protecting myself?" Marcus set down his tablet and looked at her carefully. "You are clearly a skilled warrior, Your Highness. Your people have a reputation for strength and combat ability. I am sure you can handle most threats." "Most threats?" "There are always situations that require different approaches," Marcus said. "Sometimes the best protection comes from avoiding fights rather than winning them." Princess Zarathil found this answer interesting. It was the first time Marcus had given her a real opinion about anything. "What do you mean by different approaches?" "Information gathering, understanding your enemies before they act, controlling the situation so that they cannot surprise you. Sometimes the most dangerous threats are the ones you never see coming." Before the princess could ask more questions, the ship's communication system crackled to life. "Your Highness," came the captain's voice, "we are receiving a distress signal from a diplomatic vessel. They report engine failure and request assistance." Princess Zarathil stood up quickly. "What kind of diplomatic vessel?" "A Zephyrian peace delegation, Your Highness. The same type of ship that was involved in the peace talks with your father." The princess felt her blood turn cold. The peace talks where her father had been killed. But she also knew that if there were real diplomats in trouble, she had a duty to help them. "Your Highness," Marcus said quietly, "I recommend that we do not respond to this distress call." She turned to stare at him. "Why not? If there are people in danger, we have to help them." "Distress calls can be faked. This could be a trap. Or it could be real diplomats who need our help. I will not abandon innocent people just because we are afraid." Marcus stood up as well. "Your Highness, I strongly advise against this course of action." Princess Zarathil felt her anger rising again. Here was the weak human, trying to make her act like a coward. "Mr. Chen, I am not going to hide from my responsibilities. We are going to help those people." She walked quickly toward the bridge, with Marcus following behind her. When she arrived, she found the captain waiting for her decision. "Prepare to dock with the diplomatic vessel," she ordered. "Send them our credentials, and let them know we are coming to assist." "Yes, Your Highness," the captain replied. But she noticed he glanced nervously at Marcus before giving the orders to his crew. As they approached the disabled ship, Princess Zarathil studied it through the viewing screen. It looked exactly like a standard diplomatic vessel. The right size, the right design, the right identification markings. She could not see anything suspicious about it. "Docking in 5 minutes," the pilot announced. Princess Zarathil went to her quarters to put on her armor and weapons. She strapped on her plasma sword and checked her energy pistol. If this was a trap, she would be ready for it. When she returned to the docking area, she found Marcus waiting there. He had changed out of his business suit and was now wearing dark combat clothing. She also noticed that he was carrying several items she had not seen before. What looked like communication equipment and some kind of scanning device. "Where did you get that gear?" she asked. "I always carry backup equipment," Marcus replied. "Your Highness, I want to ask you one more time to reconsider this decision." "Why are you so worried about this?" "It is just a disabled ship." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I have been monitoring electronic signatures from that vessel. Some of the readings do not match what I would expect from a ship with engine problems." "What kind of readings?" "Power distribution patterns. If their engines were really disabled, I would expect to see different energy signatures. This ship is running hot, like it is preparing for combat operations." Princess Zarathiel felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying they are planning to attack us?" "I am saying that the situation does not look right. We should leave this area immediately." The princess looked at the diplomatic vessel on the viewing screen. It still looked normal to her, but she had to admit that Marcus seemed to know things about technology that she did not understand. "Docking complete," the pilot announced. "The diplomatic vessel is requesting permission to send a delegation aboard." Princess Zarathiel made her decision. Maybe Marcus was right to be suspicious, but she could not abandon people who might really need help. "Permission granted. Tell them we will meet their delegation in the main docking bay." "Your Highness," Marcus said urgently, "please reconsider." "No," she replied. "We are going to find out what these people want, but we will be careful about it." As they walked toward the docking bay, Princess Zarathiel noticed that Marcus had become much more alert. His movements were different now, smoother, more controlled. He was no longer walking like a businessman. He was walking like a predator. "Mr. Chen," she said quietly, "is there something you have not told me about your background?" Marcus glanced at her. "Your Highness, there are many things I have not told you, but right now, the most important thing is that you stay behind me when we meet these visitors." "Stay behind you? I am not hiding behind a human." "Please, Your Highness, trust me on this." There was something in his voice that made her pause. For the first time since meeting him, Marcus Chen sounded genuinely worried. And if something could worry a man who had remained calm through every other crisis on their journey, then maybe she should be worried too. They reached the docking bay just as the airlock began to open. The airlock finished opening with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. Princess Zarathiel stood ready, her hand resting on the grip of her plasma sword. Beside her, Marcus had positioned himself slightly forward, though she still thought it was strange for him to try to protect her when she was clearly the better fighter. For a moment, nothing happened. The corridor leading to the diplomatic ship was empty and quiet. Then she heard footsteps, heavy, measured steps that did not sound quite right. "Your Highness," came a voice from inside the diplomatic vessel. "Thank you for responding to our distress call. We are grateful for your assistance." The voice sounded normal, but Princess Zarathiel noticed that Marcus had gone completely still. He was listening to something she could not hear. "Please, come forward so we can discuss our situation," the voice continued. "Stay here," Marcus whispered to the princess. "Do not move closer to that airlock." "Why not?" she whispered back. Before Marcus could answer, the trap revealed itself. A figure stepped into view in the airlock doorway, and Princess Zarathiel felt her blood turn to ice. It was a Kethmori warrior. Kethmori were 8 feet tall and built like living weapons. They had 4 arms, each ending in razor-sharp claws. Their skin was thick and dark, almost like natural armor. Their species had been hired as assassins and mercenaries throughout the galaxy for thousands of years. These were the same creatures that had killed her father. "Princess Zarathiel," the Kethmori said in a voice like grinding stone, "you will come with us. Your death has been purchased, and we always complete our contracts." More figures appeared behind the first one. Princess Zarathil counted quickly. 12 Kethmori warriors, all armed with energy weapons and their natural claws. Each one was a professional killer, trained from birth to hunt and destroy their targets. "I think not," she said, drawing her plasma sword. The weapon hummed to life, casting blue light on the walls around them. The lead Kethmori laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "One small princess and one weak human against 12 of us? This will be over quickly." Princess Zarathil knew he was right. She was a skilled fighter, one of the best in the royal guard. But fighting 12 Kethmori assassins in the narrow corridor of a ship was practically suicide. She would be lucky to kill 2 or 3 of them before they overwhelmed her. She glanced around quickly, looking for Marcus. Where was her human escort? Had he run away to hide when he saw the assassins? Then she spotted him. Marcus was no longer standing beside her. Instead, he had moved to a position near the wall controls. His hands were working quickly on a control panel she had not noticed before. "What are you doing?" she called to him. "Getting us an advantage," Marcus replied, without looking up from the controls. The Kethmori warriors started moving forward. They spread out to fill the corridor, cutting off any escape routes. Princess Zarathil raised her sword and prepared to fight. She would sell her life as dearly as possible. "Surrender now, and your death will be quick," the lead assassin said. "Resist, and we will make you suffer." "I am Princess Zarathil of the Veltaran Empire," she replied loudly. "I do not surrender to hired killers." The Kethmori warriors raised their weapons, energy rifles, plasma cannons, and molecular disruptors. Enough firepower to cut through a tank. In the confined space of the ship's corridor, there was nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. "Your Highness," Marcus called softly. "When the lights go out, drop to the floor and do not move." "What lights?" she started to ask. Then everything went black. The corridor plunged into complete darkness. Emergency lighting should have activated immediately, but nothing happened. Princess Zarathil could not see her own hand in front of her face. She heard the Kethmori warriors cursing in their own language. Energy weapons fired wildly, lighting up the darkness for brief moments. She could hear them moving around, trying to find their targets. "Where are they?" one of the assassins shouted. "I cannot see anything," another replied. More weapons fired. Princess Zarathil pressed herself against the floor, trying to stay out of the line of fire. She could hear the assassins moving around her, but she could not tell where they were or what they were doing. Then she started hearing other sounds. Wet impacts, strangled cries, the sound of heavy bodies hitting the metal deck. But no human voices, no energy weapons being fired by her side. "Who is there?" one of the Kethmori screamed. "Show yourself." The response was another wet impact and a gurgling sound. Princess Zarathil tried to understand what was happening. The assassins were dying, but she was not fighting them. She was lying on the floor in complete darkness. So who was killing them? "It is the human," another assassin shouted. "Find him." "Where is he?" came the reply. "I cannot see him." More sounds of violence echoed through the corridor. Snapping sounds, like bones breaking. Choking noises, the shuffle of feet on metal deck plates. But she could not hear Marcus's voice, or any sound that would tell her where he was. "There!" a Kethmori warrior yelled, and fired his weapon. The energy blast lit up the corridor for a moment, showing several dark shapes on the floor. But it did not hit anything else. The return attack came immediately. Princess Zarathil heard a sound like a blade cutting through flesh, followed by a scream that was suddenly cut off. "How many of us are left?" one of the remaining assassins called out. "I do not know," came the frightened reply. "Korvax, Threx, answer me." No one answered. Princess Zarathil realized that she was listening to professional killers who had become terrified. These were creatures that had spent their lives hunting the most dangerous prey in the galaxy. But now they sounded like children afraid of the dark. The attacks continued. One by one, the remaining Kethmori warriors stopped talking. She could hear them dying, but she could not hear their killer. Whoever was hunting them moved without sound, struck without warning, and disappeared back into the darkness before they could fight back. Finally, there was silence. Princess Zarathil lay on the floor, breathing hard. Her heart was pounding so loud, she was sure everyone could hear it. Then, 30 seconds later, the emergency lights flickered back on. Princess Zarathil blinked as the emergency lights slowly came back to life. The corridor was filled with a dim red glow that made everything look like a scene from a nightmare. She pushed herself up from the floor and looked around. 12 dead Kethmori assassins lay scattered throughout the corridor. Each one had been killed by precise strikes to vital points: throat, heart, base of skull. There were no energy weapon burns, no plasma cuts, no signs of the high-tech weapons that modern warriors used. These kills had been made with bare hands and simple tools. Princess Zarathil stared at the bodies in shock. She had seen battlefields before, but this was different. This was not the result of a fight. This was the result of a hunt. "Your Highness!" She spun around to see Marcus Chen emerging from the shadows near the wall. His dark combat clothing helped him blend into the dim lighting, but now she could see him clearly. He was completely calm, breathing normally, not even sweating. In his hands were several small items that she now realized were weapons, simple knives and tools that could kill silently. "Are you injured?" he asked, checking her over with his eyes. "No, how did you—" She could not find the words to ask what she wanted to ask. Marcus holstered his weapons with smooth, practiced movements. "We should return to the bridge, Your Highness. I need to check for any additional threats." Additional threats? Princess Zarathil was still trying to process what she had just witnessed. "You killed 12 Kethmori assassins, in the dark, in 30 seconds. Actually, it was closer to 28 seconds, Marcus said, as if this was a normal conversation. "But we can discuss the details later. Right now, we need to make sure this was the only attack team." As they walked back through the ship, Princess Zarathil found herself looking at Marcus with completely new eyes. The quiet, unremarkable human, who had seemed so ordinary, was moving with the fluid grace of a predator. She noticed details that she had missed before: the way he kept track of every person and every possible threat around them, how his eyes constantly scanned for danger, the way he positioned himself to control their route through the ship. "Mr. Chen," she said when they reached the bridge, "I think you owe me an explanation." Marcus nodded to the captain, who looked relieved to see them both alive. "Take us away from the diplomatic vessel immediately," Marcus ordered. "Full speed toward the capital. And send a coded message to Fleet Command. Tell them the Nightfall package has been delivered." "Yes, sir," the captain replied, then caught himself. Yes, Your Highness." Princess Zarathil noticed that the captain had taken orders from Marcus without question. "Nightfall package? What is that?" "Your Highness," Marcus said gently, "perhaps we should speak privately." They went to the princess's quarters, where Marcus finally began to explain what had really been happening during their journey. "The assassination plot against you began before your father was killed," he said. "The Galactic Protection Agency has been tracking a network of hired killers for several months. We knew they would try to eliminate you before you could claim the throne." "We? I am not just a bodyguard, Your Highness. I am a specialist in counter-assassination operations. My job was to protect you by eliminating the threats against you." Princess Zarathil sat down heavily in her chair. "All those small incidents during our trip were probes by the enemy," Marcus confirmed. "They were testing our defenses, looking for weaknesses, trying to find the best way to attack you. I made sure they failed every time. But you made it look like accidents and minor problems. That was the point. I wanted the enemy to think their probes were succeeding, I wanted them to believe that our defenses were weak and that you would be an easy target. The princess thought back over the journey. All of Marcus's strange behavior now made sense. The mysterious communication monitoring, the background checks that happened too quickly, his knowledge of technical problems before anyone else knew about them. You were hunting them, she said. Yes, the distress call from the diplomatic vessel was exactly what I was waiting for. I knew they would use that approach because it would appeal to your sense of duty. You would feel obligated to help, even if it might be dangerous. So you let me walk into a trap. It was the only way to draw out all of the assassins at once. If we had avoided the trap, they would have just tried again later, maybe when we were not prepared for them. This way, we could control the situation. Princess Zarathil felt a mixture of anger and admiration. You used me as bait. I used myself as bait, Marcus corrected. You were never in real danger. I had control of the ship's systems from the moment we docked. I could cut the lights, seal the airlocks, control the artificial gravity, whatever I needed to gain an advantage over the enemy. But 12 Kethmori assassins are very dangerous if they can see you, Marcus said. In complete darkness, they become much more manageable. Humans have some advantages that other species do not always appreciate. What kind of advantages? Marcus was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. We are very good at adapting to difficult situations. We can fight in conditions that would disable other species. And we have learned to use tools and tactics that others might consider primitive or dishonorable. Princess Zarathil thought about the dead assassins lying in the corridor. You killed them with knives. Among other things, when you cannot use energy weapons without giving away your position, you learn to be creative. But they were professional killers, the most dangerous fighters in the galaxy. They were specialists, Marcus agreed. Very good at what they do, as long as the situation matches their training. But humans have a saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy. We are very good at changing the rules when we need to. The princess stood up and walked to the viewing port. Outside she could see the stars streaming past as they traveled toward home. In a few hours, she would arrive at the capital to claim her father's throne. Thanks to the quiet human she had dismissed as worthless, she would arrive alive. Mr. Chen, she said without turning around, what is your real name? Marcus Chen is my real name, Your Highness. But your real job, your real background. I work for a small specialized unit within the Galactic Protection Agency. We handle cases that require unconventional approaches. My official title is Senior Threat Resolution Specialist. Princess Zarathil turned to look at him. And, unofficially? Marcus gave her a small smile. It was the first time she had seen him smile, and it changed his entire appearance. Instead of a quiet clerk, she saw someone who was very confident in his own abilities. Unofficially, Your Highness, I am someone who makes problems disappear. As they continued toward the capital, Princess Zarathil found herself thinking about everything she had learned. She had spent her life believing that strength meant size, that power meant visible weapons and obvious displays of force. But the human had shown her a different kind of strength, the power